Have you ever watched a young player and just felt like there was something different about him? That's how I felt the first time I watched Camren Dansin. And the more I've watched him, the more there's been one player I keep thinking about: Pedri. Now, before anyone misunderstands me, I'm not saying Camren Dansin is Pedri. I don't think that's a fair comparison to make, especially considering what Pedri has already achieved in the game. But there are certain qualities that Pedri has that I think Dansen also has. Obviously at a much lower level because Dansen plays in the PSL. But the way they understand football, the way they move, the way they receive the ball, the way they seem to make the game easier for the players around them, that's what caught my attention about Dansen. And I thought it would be interesting to make a video explaining why I think Cameron Dansin is one of the most exciting young footballers at Orlando Pirates. Hi, I'm Fumani and welcome to the channel. The first thing that stands out to me is just how naturally he understands the game. Some players are fairly athletic, some players are technically gifted, some players can score spectacular goals, but with Dansen you get all that and then some. It's his decision making that is impressive to me. Whenever I watch him, it doesn't look like he's rushed. He doesn't look like someone who's figuring things out after the ball arrives. It almost feels like he's already seen the picture before everyone around him. I think that's one of the hardest qualities to teach in football, and the coaches will bear witness. Technique can improve, physicality can improve, even confidence can improve. But football intelligence is a very difficult thing to coach. And I think Dansen already has a lot of it. The other thing I really think is the way he moves. He's one of those players that's just easy on the eye. He glides across the pitch. Nothing looks forced. He's not running around trying to show the fans how hard he's working. He just seems to arrive in the right spaces at the right time. That's something that Pedri does really well as well. If you watch Pedri for 90 minutes, you'll notice he's constantly moving to make himself available. He doesn't always receive the ball, but he's always giving his teammates an option. I see a bit of that in Cameron Dansin. He's always trying to help the team play. One thing I also noticed is that he doesn't just receive the ball for the sake of receiving it. It feels like every reception has a purpose. There's something he wants to do. Sometimes he'll receive because he wants to turn away from pressure. Sometimes he'll drop deep because he wants to help the team play out from the back. Sometimes he'll receive between the lines because he wants to connect the midfield to the attack. And there's always a reason behind what he's doing. That's something I personally really appreciate in midfielders. The midfielders I like, they've got that one specific quality. Technically, I don't think there's much to worry about. He's comfortable on the ball. He manipulates it really well in tight spaces. He has balance and agility. And one thing that really stood out to me quite early on is that he's generally two-footed. We saw that goal against Mamelodi Sundowns. The ball's dropping out of the air. It falls onto his weaker left foot and he doesn't even hesitate. He hits it first time into the top corner. Now, obviously, it's only one goal and we shouldn't build a whole opinion around one moment. But I do think moments like that tell you something. They tell you about a player's confidence. They tell you about his technique. And they tell you about his temperament, his big game temperament. Because that wasn't a friendly against Dondol or Kazrick, all due respect to Dondol and Kazrick. It was a game of consequence against Marabastad FC, Mamelodi Sundowns. Those are the moments where some players become a little bit hesitant, fearing the reaction of his teammates and the fans. But Dansen didn't. He backs his own ability. And that's another thing I've started to notice about him, is that he looks like a real competitor. He doesn't seem intimidated by the occasion. He actually looks like someone who enjoys responsibility in big occasions. And maybe that's one of the reasons we saw him wearing the captain's armband with a youthful Orlando Pirates side during pre-season. Now, obviously, we don't know everything that goes into those kind of decisions, but coaches generally don't hand the armband to someone by accident. There's usually a level of trust there. Maybe it's because of how he trains. Maybe it's because of how he carries himself. Maybe it's because everyone else around him is new at the club. Maybe it's because of the influence he has on the players around him. Whatever the reason is, I think it's another encouraging sign about Camren Dansin. Something else that's worth mentioning is where he comes from. Now, like Mofokeng and other players in the PSL, Dansen is a graduate of the School of Excellence. And I don't think that's something we should trivialize or just overlook. The School of Excellence has produced players who are technically secure and who understand the game at a very, very impressive level. When you watch Dansen, you can see that education in him. His body shape when he receives the ball, the angles he creates, the way he seems to scan before possession arrives. Those things don't happen by accident. They are habits drilled into a young player countless hours after school on the training pitch, blowing the whistle non-stop to start again because someone wasn't playing with his head up. Coaches know what I'm talking about, right? I've also heard him speak recently about Mofokeng's move to Belgium. And what I liked wasn't that he was talking about Europe. Everyone talks about Europe. It was his ambition. You could tell he looks at Mofokeng's journey and he thinks, if I do the right things, maybe I can follow that pathway. I actually think that's healthy because, again, Mofokeng's move isn't just good for Mofokeng and his family. It's good for every talented young player at Orlando Pirates. That's the bigger picture. It gives them a reference point. It shows them that performing at Pirates consistently can lead to opportunities overseas. Now, the interesting question for me is, where does Cameron Dansin actually get his opportunities this season? Because if we're being honest, Orlando Pirates have got a lot of central midfielders. They've got a lot. You've got Talent Mbata, you've got Makehleni Makaula, Nduli, Mariko, Nemtajela, Mtiani, Mulai, Slepe. That's a lot of competition. And central midfield is probably one of those hardest positions in football to break into when you are young. Experience matters in central midfield. Knowing when to speed the game up, knowing when to slow it down, knowing when to take risks. Those things usually come with playing hundreds and hundreds of matches. So I actually wonder whether his quickest route into the first team might be a little bit further forward. Say, as a number 10. When you look at that position at Pirates, Patrick Maswanganyi probably is the favorite to start. And then Andre de Jong is another option, especially a goal-scoring option. And then there's the much-forgotten Kabelo Dlamini who can play there as well. But after that, I think there's an opportunity for Dansen. And I actually think Dansen has the qualities to play there. He can receive the ball in tight spaces. He links play really well. He can drift deeper to help the team build attacks before joining the final third later on to finish chances. Long term though, I don't think that's where he'll end up. I actually see him becoming more of a central midfielder, the kind of player who dictates games from deeper areas, the kind of player who always wants the ball, who connects the defense to the attack, who controls the rhythm of the match. Now, those players are incredibly valuable in the game, and you don't need me to tell you. Central midfielders like that are valuable. The biggest question isn't whether he has the talent. Again, for me, the talent is obvious, and I think many will agree. The question is whether he'll get enough opportunities, because that's ultimately what took Nkotha, Mbogazi, and Mofokeng abroad. Yes, they were talented. Everybody knew that. But they still had to prove it. They had to influence senior football consistently. They had to show that they could do it week after week. That's what eventually earned them their respective moves. Dansen has to go through exactly the same process. And that means minutes. Young players don't develop by just sitting and rotting on the bench or just training. They develop by making mistakes, learning from them, playing again the following week. And yeah, that's how they just grow. So I genuinely hope that the coaching staff at Pirates will trust them, because I think there's a really special footballer there. I mean, I already mentioned Pedri. Will he become that player? I don't know. But I think so. I really think so. I think he's that good. Football has a way of surprising us though. But when I watch Cameron Dansin today, I see a young football player with outstanding football intelligence, very good technique, real ambition, and a profile that South Africa has plenty of in the townships, but very few at the highest level. And if Orlando Pirates can develop him properly, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if 2 years from now, we're having the same conversation about his move to Europe that we had about Mofokeng much recently. Let me leave it there. Goodbye.